In this fourth and final episode of our Retellings Masterclass, we're going to be discussing next steps in publishing. So if you have not watched the first 3 episodes where we helped you to decide what topic you're going to be writing about, how to create your twist on a retelling, how to avoid copyright infringement, and make sure you're doing your research properly, all the way to best practices for how you should be writing, how to be more strategic in writing, and more, we want to now wrap this up with next steps for you to be taking inside of the publishing world. And that means everything from the time you finalize that manuscript and you write the actual last word inside of your story, all the way to getting your books out in the world. Today, we're breaking down these concepts for you. If you've got questions or comments along the way, go ahead and drop those down below. And if you've got a topic you want to see for our next masterclass, go ahead and let me know. I'm a multi-time best-selling author with the number 774 and 87 best-selling book out of every book in existence on Amazon, number 1 in all of my categories, and over 24 published books out in the world. I want to make sure we're answering your questions as somebody who's been in this industry for 5 years as a published author and educating and working with the big publishing houses for many years before that, so that you can get the best of my experience and other authors' experiences here on the YouTube channel to enhance what you're doing and give you a leg up on how you are creating your concepts, your manuscripts, and getting your books out into the world. So what do you do after you finish your manuscript? Once you've chosen your topic, you've fleshed out your characters, you have learned all about what you're writing, and you've actually done the full-on crazy task of writing your manuscript, we now need to take some next steps. We now need to make sure that your manuscript is ready to go out into the world. So we need to make sure we're talking about how you're going to be doing this. And it starts off with making sure you are editing your book. So once you've finished writing your manuscript, you are then going to go through this process. And this is a really important process. Now, there may be some other steps you should be taking too. You can add more in, but this is the bare minimum basics of what to do and how to do it. So the first thing you're going to be doing is self-editing your novel. You need to now read through everything that you've written. I know you just wrote the entire manuscript, but now is the time to do your self-editing. You have to go through and look for plot holes and errors and issues, grammar stuff, typos, making sure you're dealing with punctuation properly. This is you doing your best sweep of this manuscript to make it as clean as humanly possible. Now, as a pro tip, I recommend giving yourself a little space. Once you've become an established author, it's fine to jump right into editing. But as someone who is new or newer to this, or as somebody who potentially needs a little space to be more unbiased for this, take time off. I recommend a week. If you can do a month, that's even better, because that allows you to remove yourself from the story and look at it more objectively. It means you're not going to be so entrenched in the tale that you've told that you're going to miss silly mistakes. By giving yourself a little space, this is going to work much better to your benefit, and you're going to catch a lot more things. So give yourself a little bit of time and then jump into self-editing. You're going to edit through things and make sure you're looking for plot holes, errors, issues, anything that seems weird or clunky in terms of what you've written. And you're going to be making sure that you're catching typos and grammar issues and punctuation issues. Now, once you're done with that, you're going to send it through editing programs. There are 2 main ones inside of this industry, Grammarly and ProWritingAid. With these programs, they are going to look for different things. Grammarly tends to look more for punctuation and grammar type things, while ProWritingAid tends to look more along the lines of sentence structure. Now, overall, they generally do the same thing, but they catch different things. So I will take manuscripts that I have edited myself, put them through these programs to catch the things that I miss, which, by the way, you're still going to miss a lot of things, even as you're self-editing, and they are going to catch different things. I can run it through Grammarly and then run it through ProWritingAid, and ProWritingAid will catch things that Grammarly missed, and Grammarly will catch things that ProWritingAid missed. So if you can send it through multiple programs, that's actually going to work to your benefit, but it is not necessarily necessary. Now, once you've done your self-editing, and you've sent it through some editing programs, you're then going to use beta readers. Beta readers are people who are going to be looking at your story and looking for the overall effectiveness of your story. They're looking for plot holes. They're looking for any issues that you need to fix up, areas that you need to tighten up, things that can be removed that aren't necessary. These are people who understand books but are not professional editors. This can be a friend or a family member if they understand the book world. Please do not look at your best friend and say, hey, will you read my story, if they don't actively read books. Make sure you understand who you are working with and taking valid criticism from them. They may have a lot of opinions that they lob at you that are not going to be helpful to you. So be strategic in who you allow to beta read for you and be very specific and clear on feedback that you're going to be getting from them. So you are going to do a little bit of a trial or a little bit of a test with these people. Send a chapter or 3 chapters, get their feedback, and then if it resonates with you, if it works well, if it is actually effective criticism and feedback, continue to work with them. If it's a bunch of opinions and I don't like this or you should do this, that might not be the best fit for you. Now, as an added bonus, you can be working with other people on your level. Instead of actually finding friends and family and people in my life that could potentially read my story, I will actively look for other people on my level. So if you're a new writer, look for other new writers and swap manuscripts. They beta read for you, you beta read for them. This means you're both invested, you're both going to be more timely and effective in what you're saying. You're both looking for the same things, and because you're in the same mindset of wanting to be published, you're going to be actively looking for the same things, whereas somebody else who is not in this industry or trying to be in this industry is just going to kind of breeze through it and give you some notes and some feedback. So you want to make sure that you are interacting on social media, you're engaging with people, and you are looking for other people on your level to collaborate with and swap manuscripts with. Now, once you get these notes back from your beta readers and you have that feedback, you're going to take it into consideration. And remember, you don't have to do everything a beta reader says. If it's opinion based, you don't have to do it. You can take into consideration what they have said and then do what is best for you and your manuscript. Once you have those things back, you're going to self-edit again. So make any changes that you need to make. Then you're going to self-edit. So read through the entire manuscript again, baby. I know it's a lot of work. And you're going to look for any plot holes, errors, issues, especially in the things that you added or changed in your manuscript after getting that feedback. And you're going to be looking for punctuation and grammar issues too. And then you're going to be sending it through the programs again to catch anything that you've missed. And now that we've gotten through this process, now we're going to get into professional editing. Now, this is really important to hear. If you're going the independent, indie, self-published route, you're hiring a professional editor. And there are 2 types of professional editors that we typically recommend: developmental editors and line editors. Now, there are other types of editors. Don't come at me if you are a person in this industry, but these are the 2 basic types, the ones that you're going to want to be looking for. If you're new in this world, I highly recommend a developmental editor because you don't know what you're doing yet. You're really not going to understand how to write effectively until your 4th, 5th, 6th book. So hire a developmental editor to help you figure out where you need to be tightening things up, what things can be removed, how to structure things a little bit better, how to cohesively put this book together and look for plot holes, errors, issues. Developmental editors make your book stronger and better and more effective. Line editors are looking for copyright mistakes, so punctuation, typos, cleaning things up, making it ready to be published. So if you are a new writer, I do recommend both of those editors. Now, as you become progressed in this industry and you have a couple books out, you've worked with a bunch of editors, you know the drill. Now you can start to just hire one that could do it combined for you, or you could just hire somebody to deal with your line editing. So if you are someone who needs a little bit help with the structure of your story, as you continue to mature inside of this industry, keep hiring developmental editors as you go, and then hire that line editor or that proofreader, that copyright for the end of your process. Now, again, if you are going the indie path, you're in charge of this. You find your person, you do your thing. Now your book's ready to go out into the world. If you're looking to get a traditional contract, you are not hiring a professional editor. This is a waste of your money and of your time. You need to have your manuscript as polished as possible, and then you're going to query to an agent. You must get an agent. You must have an agent to reach the high-end publishing houses. You do not want to go with a small or medium-sized publisher at this point in the industry. They are not equipped to market your book the way that it needs to be marketed. You're not going to make money off of it. You're not going to become famous. It's not going to happen. Your best bets are to go indie, where you have all of the freedom, you can make all of the money, you get all of your rights, all of the things, or you can go with one of the big 5 publishers, which you need an agent to get to. And if you are their favorite, then they will continue to market your book. Otherwise, you're still doing all of that work for the remainder of your contract entirely on your own once your book is out in the world. So you need to take these things into consideration. And I have lots of videos on this platform on how to decide the right fit for you. It may vary vary between the different manuscripts that you write. So you need to learn the pros and cons to both of these angles, and you need to make sure that you're picking the best fit for you and for each individual manuscript that you are writing. If you are trying to go the traditional route, their job is to then pay for a professional editor. So if you pay for a professional editor before you shop the book around, you're wasting your money because they're going to make you go through this process and change a bunch of things anyway. So you are now taking this as clean as possible manuscript to get an agent. They're going to send you through some editing. They're going to make you make some changes. Then they're going to shop it around to the publishers. And if a publisher buys it, then they are going to hire an editor of their choosing to tell you what you need to change and what you need to do in your book, at which point you have to do what they say. You don't get a choice because you've signed away your rights. You can lobby for yourself, you can advocate for yourself, but ultimately it's their decisions because you signed away the rights. If you are working with a professional editor as an independently published person, a self-published indie person, you get the final say. Your editor may say you need to make these changes and you may need to do these things, but you get the ultimate say in this. They will hand the manuscript back to you and you get to decide what you do and then put it out into the world. So you have to be very clear and strategic on who you're working with, what you're working with, why you're working with them, and then making the decisions that you are going to be making yourself. But as I mentioned, there's a couple of different types of publishing. So there's traditional publishing. In the traditional world, you are taking your manuscript and you are going to be giving it to an agent that takes you on. This agent's going to shop it around to different publishing houses, and hopefully one of the big ones will pick it up. Again, don't sell your book to a medium or small size publisher. They just aren't going to last in the industry at this point. It's not an effective use of your time, effort, and book contracts are usually 5 years long. That's 5 years that you can't do anything with your book outside of what they say you can and can't do. You are signing away your rights, so they get the final say on everything, including your editing, how many characters you have in your story, the ending to your story, the cover of your story, the formatting, the blurb. Everything is their decision and their decision alone. You then get a cut of the profits, but they also get most of the profits because they're now paying the company, they're paying your cover designer, your editor, all of these things. So you get to decide if you want to go traditional and get access to their audience if they're one of the big publishers, or if you want to go the indie realm. Indie is where you do things yourself. You get to make all your own decisions. You get to decide your cover and hire the cover designer you want, the editor that you want. You get the final say in everything, and you get to do your own marketing. Now, remember, in a traditional stance, they will throw a little bit of money at your marketing. But as soon as your book is out in the world, they're moving on to the next story, which means for the remainder of that 5-year contract, you're doing all of your marketing. So you're doing this either way. It really just depends on if you want to give away your rights and a lot of your royalties so that somebody else will give you their audience, or if you want to do it your own and keep all of those rights and your money yourself. But there is a third kind. It is called hybrid publishing. It's also called vanity press publishing. This is where a publisher will say, you pay us to publish your book. You pay for the cover. You pay for the editing. You pay for your marketing. And this is predatory. Do not ever work with a hybrid or vanity press. They will often say, no, we're legit. This is how things are done now. They will say we're not predatory, but they are lying. Do not ever work with a company that says you have to pay us, because that is not publishing. At that point, it breaks down to this. In the traditional space, they are making money off of your book. Once your book is sold, they make a good part of your royalties and they give you a chunk of it. In hybrid publishing, they're not making money off of selling your book. They're making money off of you paying them to sell your book. No one ever should be making money off of your book but you, unless it's a traditional based contract where they're doing some of the work and then keeping the profits. So if you're working with a traditional publishing house, you're fine. You're giving away your rights and a good part of what you are making so that they can do the work. You are not paying them to do the work. A hybrid publisher or vanity press makes you pay for them to do the work. You are the thing they're making the money off of, not your story. And that means your story is never going anywhere in the world because it's not. They've made their money. They don't need your book to make money. Now, in the indie space, you are taking all of those rules on yourself. And so you will be paying an editor and a cover designer, but these are one-time fees for the things, and they're not making any royalties off of you. With these other versions, the traditional and the hybrid publishing, they are making part of your royalties. So in hybrid, not only are you paying them to create your book, but you're also giving away any chunk of sales that you make in the future. With traditional, they are paying to do these things, and then they're going to pay you off of the royalties later on. Indie, you're just paying a little bit upfront for your editing, for your formatting, for your cover designer, and then everything else stays with you. So you have to decide what's going to be the best fit for you. And again, we've got lots of videos on the channel on this so that you know exactly what you should be doing that is best for you and for your individual manuscript. And of course, you have to make sure you are writing to market, because some things will sell better indie and some things will sell better in a traditional space as well. Now, when it comes to the publishing world, there are lots of red flags. Vanity presses and hybrid presses being one of the biggest of them. Avoid them at all costs, but you also have to be aware of what's going on. Smaller publishers, medium-sized publishers are going down right now. You don't necessarily want to be connected to these people. We are seeing so many publishing houses closing, including the biggest publishing houses in the world. They are absorbing each other and going out of business. So you have to be very aware of how this is going to work for you and the future. And you have to be able to predict where this industry is going. You want to be looking for people who are working to your benefit. So if you are going to be working in the indie space, you're looking for actual professionals to work with, not just people who hang up a shingle and say, yes, I'm a professional editor, because anybody can claim to be a professional editor. I once worked with somebody who said, I've worked with one of the big 5 houses, and she edited my book, and it was an absolute disaster. It was really, really bad. She didn't actually do the job she said she was going to do. We found a bunch of errors and a bunch of problems. And when I went back to her, we discovered that working with the big 5 publishers actually meant beta reading for an author who eventually got signed to one of those big publishers. It is not the same thing. So you got to make sure you're actually looking for work that speaks for itself. Who have they actually worked with? What have they actually designed? You have to be careful with cover designers, because some of them say, yeah, I know how to use Photoshop or Canva, and they make very homemade looking covers, which means your book is not going to sell because it's simply not going to happen. So you have to look for people who have a good reputation in this industry, who have recommendations from other authors or other publishers, who actively have work out in the industry and have clearly done their due diligence when it comes to creating the content that they're creating on your behalf, and not just saying, yes, I am this kind of occupation. You also want to make sure that when you're working with agents, that they actually have the connections that you need. Many agents will say, yes, I'm an agent, but not have connections to the big publishers, which means if they don't know someone there, they can't pitch your book to them. So you have to make sure they have worked with other people and gotten those manuscripts into big publishing houses, and that they have connections. I have a close friend who signed on with her agent because her agent had a connection to a movie agent. And because her agent had a connection to a movie agent, she now has a movie deal because she was smart and strategic on who she worked with and the connections that they have, while other people have agents who don't actually have connections and only submitted their books to small publishers that you don't actually need an agent to get into, which means their book never went anywhere because they only had a small publishing book deal. I have had lots of horror stories over the years on contracts offered to me. So you want to be looking for contracts that have red flags. And we talk all about the legal side of things here on the channel. So make sure you pay attention to those as well. We're not going to get too much into it in this particular episode, but you want to make sure you're looking for things that work to your benefit, and always hire a publishing lawyer to look over your contract. Your agent is not a lawyer, does not understand the law from a legal perspective, and is not working for you. The only person working solely for you is your publishing lawyer. They are here to make sure you're getting the best deal, and they are making a percentage of what you are going to get for your advance inside of your deal. Your agent has a horse in the race. They are trying to get you a good deal because then they make a commission off of your royalties and off of your publishing deal and the contract that you're signing, but they also need to be able to bring other clients to this publisher, which means they're going to negotiate a good deal for you that will result in more deals for them, because they're also giving a little bit back to that publishing house. The only person fighting fully and completely for you is your publishing lawyer. So make sure that you are getting a good, strong publishing lawyer if nobody else on your team. From there, you want to make sure that you are working with publishers that have put out good books. If you're looking at one of the big 5 houses, you know that they put out good things, they market fairly well, you'll be okay taken care of. And if you're their favorite, you'll be well taken care of. If you are with a smaller or a medium-sized publisher, you want to make sure that they have books you recognize and people that they work with, and you're able to talk to their other people. Now, keep in mind that authors unfortunately will have to lie to you if you go and ask them, hey, how is it to work with this publishing house, or how is it to work with this agent? If they're under contract with these people, they can't speak badly of them. I myself have had author friends lie to other people because they were worried about their jobs and their security in that house. So you have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, you're doing your research, you're looking for these things. And if an agent or a publisher or people connected to these companies are talking badly about their authors or about the professionals that they work with, these are all red flags. So you're looking for things that could potentially be a problem. And if you want to hear some of my red flag publishing stories, please let me know in the comments below, because boy, do I have some interesting ones. And I will happily tell you, without using names, I will tell you exactly what happened and some of the crazy phone calls I have had with owners of publishing houses who wanted to publish my books, who then later stole from a bunch of their authors and started to burn in the industry and are still operating to this day because they got around some of the legal proceedings. So if you want this tea, go ahead and let me know down below. I would love to share some of these stories, again, without names, but you want to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing and what you're getting into before you get into some of the scarier side of the publishing industry. And if you have questions at any point, I will happily speak to you behind the scenes. I know a lot about a lot of people and a lot of companies, and I will not hold back if I think you're going to step into a situation that is not healthy for you. So I will tell you everything I possibly can to make sure you are protected in what you are doing, no matter what realm you choose to step into in the publishing world. So you want to make sure that you are focused on a couple of things when it comes to best practices. As you are preparing to move forward, you want to make sure that you are actively looking for green flags in the industry. You are staying away from red flags. You are saying no to things that don't feel right to you. If it's not in your best interest, you're going to walk away from these things. You want to make sure that you are actively going to be working toward what is best for you. So you're writing frequently. You are constantly learning about this industry. You are studying the markets. You're learning what does and does not work. You're learning about tropes and niches. You're going to be learning about different practices, and you're going to be studying covers, and you're going to be studying all the things. Getting into writing, the vast majority of what you do is not writing. Writing is like 10% of what you have to do in order to be successful, or even not even successful, but just functioning inside of this industry. You got to make sure you understand business. So you want to make sure that you are actively looking for good connections, for people who have good connections, and for people who are doing well in this industry. Learn from other authors. Pay attention to the people who are teaching, but not taking advice from newbies. There are so many authors out there who have one book that is published by a big publisher, and they are acting as an authority in this industry, but that could be a fluke. It could be that they had a good team. There's a lot of things that are not going to lead to helpful information for you. So you have to make sure that you are learning from people who have over and over again proven that they understand this industry. People who have many books out, who have hit bestsellers lists many times, who are clearly speaking and teaching in the community with the acceptance of other people and other people putting them forward. So you want to make sure you're very careful where your information comes from, because a lot of people can run their mouths on social media and give you really bad advice because they think they know what they're doing, but they're still new at this. So be very, very careful where your advice comes from, and make sure that you are aware of what actually happens in the publishing world. You're going to learn a lot once you get here, but if you pay attention, you can learn a lot beforehand too. Now, when it comes to publishing, there are a couple of last things I want to chat about, and those include timelines. In the indie world, you run the show, you run the timeline. You can put out your book as quickly as you want, which means if you write quickly, you can get a book out very fast. Because I am so strategic about how I write, and because I've leveled up my writing so much, I can, from start to finish, and I am talking the very first concept of this book to having it out and published in the hands of readers, I can do it in 2 weeks. This is not normal for most people, but I write full-length novels in under 10 days. I can turn them in with only a handful of typos. I can get it back from my editor if they're on top of their game. I can get it covered and formatted and have it in the hands of readers in 2 weeks if that's something I wanted to do. Indie goes as quickly or as slowly as you want. So if you're a slower writer, it's going to take longer. If you're a faster writer, it's going to be shorter and you can put more out in the world. In the traditional timeline, you will have to write your book, and then you're going to have to get an agent. Getting an agent usually takes a few months, because as you're submitting, they're getting hundreds of submissions every single day. So they slowly get around to looking at yours, and then maybe they'll want to read a couple chapters. Maybe they'll ask for the full manuscript, then they'll have a meeting with you, then they'll sign you on. This again, maybe if you're super lucky, it could take a couple of weeks. For most people, it takes many months to years to get an agent because that's just the way the industry works. It's very, very slow because they're getting lots of submissions. From there, your agent then has to shop it around to a publishing house. Again, this will probably take several months. You will probably get turned down a lot. They may ask you for a different book to try again in a different way. It may never happen, even if you have an agent. Once you do have a publisher, once they do sign you on, it will be at least a 1 year process to get your book out into the world because you have to go through at least a couple rounds of editing and a lot of behind the scenes things. So, at least at minimum, a year from the time you sign with a publishing house. Sometimes it takes longer. So, the entire process in the traditional space can take many, many months to many, many years. And you just have to understand that you need to keep writing as you go. Never stop writing. You always want to be writing the next book. And as a pro tip, you're not writing the next book in the series because no traditional publisher is buying a series at this time unless you're a well-established author. They're buying a standalone with the potential for a series, or they're buying a straight standalone. So you do not want to work on your second book because they're going to make you change things in your first book that will impact the second book, and you're wasting your time. You're going to have to redo it anyway. So you should be working on a different book. If you're trying to go through the traditional space, you are working on a different book because you may get a contract on that second book. You may get a contract on the second book before you get a contract on the first book. There's a lot of variables inside of the traditional space. Now, if you were writing indie, you do want to write that next book in the series. You don't want to bounce to a different series because people don't buy books until full series are out. So you want to get those done as quickly as possible and out in the world as quickly as possible so that you can start making money and grow inside of this industry. Now, there's a lot that goes into these timelines for publishing, but basically the breakdown is indie can be as fast or as slow as you want. You get to do whatever you want, however you want. In the traditional space, it is a several year process. So just be prepared for that as you're jumping into it. And if you've got questions or comments on this, I would love to make sure we are getting these answered for you. Now, as part of this masterclass for retellings, I want to make sure we're answering your questions. So if you have watched all 4 parts and you've got questions, drop those down below. If you have ideas for series or things I should be doing masterclasses on, please drop those down below as well. Hit the subscribe and notification bell because we have daily videos coming out for you to help you level up with your writing, the publishing side of things, with the author life side of things. We've got lifestyle things going on. We've got lots of parodies. There's lots of stuff to help you decide what to read next or what to write next inside of this platform, and I would love to hear from you. Drop your questions down below and let me know, are you going to jump into the world of creating your own retelling? I would love to hear about it. Remember, there are room for all the stories. I wrote a Cinderella retelling about an assassin Cinderella, and when I wrote my book, all of a sudden, multiple other people wrote it too. Our books are entirely different, and it's okay for them to use the same trope as me, but because we're all writing these things, we know that there's a market for it. So no matter what you're writing or your twist on it, even if there's other things similar, it just means people have a love for this kind of thing and there is room and space for your stories in the world. So now is the time to jump into the world of retellings. They sell really well, they market really well, and it's a really fun experience that helps you elevate who you are as a writer because now you have to create a completely unique story with random things that you have to write into it to make people understand and recognize it. I will love to hear your ideas for what you're going to create in your retelling space, so feel free to slide into my DMs, and I'll see you in the next episode of the YouTube channel where we're helping you level up in your writing life and your reading life.